Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Jennifer Batza, and today on my blog, I am going to be talking about being a Generation X witch and being a Gen Xer in general. Now, first off, we're not boomers, not even a little. We've been okay boomers since the 1980s. We just called it die up, be scum. Anyways, the boomers were our parents. So, um, probably your grandparents if you're younger than us. But Generation X, the years have changed on, kind of a little bit in either direction on who gets to be Gen X and who doesn't. So currently, it's anyone born between 1965 and 1980. So I was born in 1975, so I'm a little on the younger side of Gen X, and then there's also the overlapping micro generation of Xennials, which it looks like includes anyone born between 1977 and 85. So that's sort of that in between generation gap of people who are sort of on the brink of being millennials, but also being kind of Gen X at the same time. So just to give you a little bit of that, I've actually spent a lot of time doing, especially focused on Generation X studies. When I was in grad school, I was working on looking at all the subcultures that came out of Generation X, like from punk rock, you had all the heavy metal scenes, goth, industrial, alternative, grunge, all these things that came out in our generation. So I was looking at that, and I had done a lot of studies and had read a lot of books at the time on that. Never got to finish the work I was doing because I ended up leaving grad school for other reasons. But again, we're not boomers. Most of us are probably the youngest of us are just turning 40, and some of us are in our 50s now. Have kids, taking care of parents. Some of our kids are probably in college. I know people that I went to high school with, their kids are in college now, which is just very weird. Or some of them are even older. How many years did I graduate? I graduated in 93. So that was, oh no, their kids are almost 30. So yeah, I'm old. Well, no, that would be if they had kids in 1993. So anyways, though I did go to Catholic school. So that was a thing. And we're also not the Karen generation, although admittedly we do have a slight Karen problem. But to kind of explain a little bit of the Karen phenomenon, I know this kind of goes a little bit away from the witchcraft aspect of this, but it does play into it. Is that I know for my generation, and I'll be 45 in a month, and we still came from a generation where we had to shout to be heard or to be taken seriously. And yeah, that might come across as seeing like a Karen bitch, who needs to speak to the manager. But, growing up, we had to do that shit because people did not take us seriously. And that might be different for, if you're now in your 30s or 20s or things like that, that you did that, some of these things were just automatically, I don't know. I don't want to say, because everything, shit's problematic still, don't get me wrong, especially if you are a woman or a woman identifying person, or let's just say if you're not a cishet man. Anyways, but that aside, we've had to fight for everything. And in doing so, a lot of us have very strong personalities, myself included. I'm often, I would come across as intimidating. I don't mean to. I just am a very strong speaker. I say what's on my mind. I'm no bullshit. Actually, I'm probably zero bullshit. And I don't take shit. And I say what I have to say. But I'm also very kind and nurturing because, growing up, there was a lot of gatekeeping of information where it's like, oh, you got to know this if you knew the right person and things like that. So I love to share my knowledge with people. And, I hate that gatekeeping that happens. It's like, oh, you need to be initiated into this and have this many years of experience in order to, do this, that, or the other thing. I'm like, also, Gen Xers, we like to break the rules a lot. We don't like being told what to do. Chances are, if you tell me what to do, you can ask me or suggest something. Don't tell me what to do, because that is the quickest way to piss me off and get me to do the exact opposite. Just ask my ex-husband. Sorry, former husband. We're actually really good friends, but we just always had that rebellious nature. And even at 45, I still have a rebellious nature. So I'm not defined by the number of years I've been on the planet or the age that I am. I'm defined by the life experiences that I've had and seeing the world change literally before my eyes. The world I grew up in and I don't remember a lot from the late 1970s because I was 4 or 5 years old. Outside of like 3 Mile Island, Ronald Reagan getting shot and Jimmy Carter being president, and a few other things. Sesame Street. We've seen some shit. We've done some shit. We've been through a lot and we've seen a lot. And that's not only in our personal lives, but that's also in just the global spectrum of where we're at in the world. So the thing is, it's like, I see a lot of people, be like, oh, the millennials are always getting picked on and Gen Z is always getting picked on and stuff like that. I'm like, welcome to the party. We were always picked on too. We were the slacker generation, a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who were never going to amount to anything. So we understand. Trust me, we do. We know what it's like to be the, Gen Xers. They're so apathetic. They're so such slackers. They're so cynical and so misanthropic, and they have no drive. They have no motivation or whatever. I'm like, the world we kind of grew up in sucked ass. So it's kind of hard to be motivated. Like, we've seen I don't know how many economic crashes and, the dot-com bust, boom and bust, the housing market collapse, all that, stuff in 2008 and all that. Recessions, wars, we're kind of the been there, done that. And I'm sure the boomers feel that way too. I mean, I know from talking to my mother about things that, she experienced in her life. So, that's something you need to understand about us. And that when we come off as being cynical, slightly jaded, opinionated, loud, I get told I'm loud a lot. Well, actually, I tell people I'm loud, just as a warning, because I am loud. And if I'm not being loud, the quieter I am, that's scary time. That's when you need to start running, because I'm probably about to go nuclear about something. So where do we fit in, and looking at the modern, witchcraft community as a whole, and, the whole generation of YouTubers and Insta witches and all these things. And, my first email address, turned, let's see, 26 this year. Anyways, but I got my first email account in 1994. We've been online. We've seen the internet, back when, we had to download these things called WAV files, .wav, which would you get a little snippet of a song because, our computers and the technology couldn't handle downloading a whole song in that amount of time. And, we were on 14.4K baud modem dial-ups back then, so we didn't have the information available to us that is available right now. We didn't have online courses that we could take. We had to rely on what was at our bookstore. If we were lucky to live in a place that had a metaphysical store, we could get some books on Wicca. We could get some. So where I left off was, talking about what the Gen Xers had access to. on our various witchcraft pagan paths back in the, some of us in the 80s and 90s and things like that. And if we were lucky, we may have had a metaphysical or occult store, nearby that we could go to. I mean, my parents used to take me to the New Age shop in Allentown, um, back, when I was in high school and stuff, and I burned my incense and candles and things like that. Um, but we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google. We maybe our Walden Books or whatever bookstore was back around back then, um, had, a little New Age section, or that metaphysical store had some occult books and stuff like that. So that's how we had to go with the information that we had available to us. But that doesn't mean we've stopped learning, or that the information we know is out of date. Because I'm the type of person that I'm thankful that we have that we can Google things now and find YouTube videos on how to do things and stuff like that, because we didn't have access to that growing up. And it's it was a challenge. And there's a lot of great books that are coming out, every year now. And there's so many other voices, where it's like before you had, your, Starhawk, Silver Ravenwolf, Buckland, all that, that whole Scott Cunningham, all that. And, that information is great. It's not bad information. I mean, some of it in, like Scott Cunningham, a lot of people still reference that in like herbal, witchcraft, herbal magic, and things like that. That's great. Just keep in mind, he's been dead for over 25 years, and some of that information has changed, and evolved over time. And because I know I think it was magical aromatherapy, he was talking about never use basil essential oil. It's toxic and poisonous. I'm like, no, it's not. There's different types of basil essential oil, but it's perfectly safe to use for the most part. I mean, every essential oil for the most part does have some, safety precautions, but that's a story for another day. But that's something to keep in mind, is looking at, all the resources and references and all the new research that comes out every year. And we do that. We're not dinosaurs. We're not, stuck in the 90s and stuff like that, although I am wearing Motley Crue leggings and, devil horns forever. We change and we adapt because we had to. Our lives changed so rapidly, growing up. Like, I remember several years ago explaining to someone who was maybe 22, who couldn't fathom why we still own things that, like, were not digital media, like why we still had books and CDs and DVDs. And I was like, listen, honey, in my generation, I've had 8-track tapes, I've had cassettes, I've had singles, I've had CDs, I've had mini CDs, I've had VHS tapes. Some of us had Beta or Betamax tapes, DVDs, digital media, etc. So we've owned some of these things. I, for one, can say I've owned Duran Duran's Seven and the Ragged Tiger on vinyl, cassette, CD, and now digital files. So I bought that entire album 4 freaking times. But it's we're used to change. We're used to adaptation, and we secretly love it. But we don't get credit for things. And I think that's what makes us a little grumpy sometimes, is that, when I see these new, 20-something authors coming out and writing these witchcraft books, like thinking they reinvented the wheel and stuff like that. It's just like, did you do some research? Do you have a bibliography that can be referenced? Because it doesn't look like your life experience, your stunning life experience, really is all that great of an experience. Sorry. And that's probably me just being cynical, because, hi, Gen Xer. But, do the work. And that's because we had to do the work. We had to do the hard work. Used to have to go to libraries and get books out and like page through all these books and bibliographies to find shit. We couldn't Google things. I mean, we had to go to the little card catalog and sift through and the Dewey Decimal System, which I still don't understand. And, and I worked in a library at one point in college. But our generation is the generation that gets overlooked. Literally they do studies and they'll be like, boomers, millennials, Gen Z. And it's like, hi, remember us? We're the people that, did things like, invented the internet, YouTube, Google, so those just little things, don't mind us. We were just slackers, ne'er-do-wells. We're never going to amount to anything. Yeah, about that. Well, as my niece likes to say, well, actually, about that. So yeah, we've done a lot. And we've contributed a lot to society, and we get ignored for it. And it's really annoying sometimes. And since y'all have a lot of time, since we're still in the quarantine lockdown, there's a really great documentary series on, I think it originally aired on CNN. It's on Amazon Prime now. It's called Generation X. It's maybe 6 to 8 episodes or something. But it really gives you a good look at our generation and what our life experience was like, because it was very different. And we were like, there's a lot of us, especially maybe the older Gen Xers that kind of grew up a little bit on the boomer side of things. And then there's us younger Gen Xers that kind of grew up a little bit more on the millennial side of things. And there's everyone in between. So there's a pretty, large range of experiences that we've had and things we've seen in our lifetimes. And, I talk about, things and, sometimes it's like, damn, you start thinking about it. It's sort of like, I think I had done a Facebook Live on my personal page, I don't know, at some point in time in the past month. And I was talking about like how magical, I think it might have been my 14th birthday in 1989, because that was around the time that the Berlin Wall came down. That was Tiananmen Square. That was like the fall of communism, communist Russia and all that. And just, it was like such a magical time where it seemed like the world was going to become this great, wonderful place. I was also 14 at the time, so maybe a little naive on that, but it's, again, we've seen a lot. And as have our boomer parents or your grandparents, if you're younger. And I have to say, I'm not anti-millennial or anti-Gen Z, although don't eat Tide Pods because they might look yummy, but that's probably not good for you. We had Mr. Yuck stickers to tell us not to do that. I don't know if you guys still have Mr. Yuck stickers, but, that was a thing. I love my millennial friends. Both my partners are millennials, Granted, sometimes they don't get my Gen X references and I feel old, but, it's a different perspective. Like, I love talking to millennials because they're so much less cynical than us. You guys are just like a breath of fresh air sometimes. I'm like, oh, honey. Because we're all here like, fight the system, because it's just, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, it's just, I've always had a rebellious nature. And even, in my 40s, I'm still rebelling against things because that's just how we were. We were sort of in that dichotomy of respect your elders, but fight authority, question authority, and that's kind of who we are. And bringing this all back into, witchcraft and stuff is, yeah, we might be loud and opinionated and be like, what the crap is this nonsense? When we're looking at sometimes things written by younger, inexperienced authors who didn't do the work to write the things they're writing about and their memoirs and experiences. And it's not to discount that, but my life experiences were very different at when I was 20 than they were at 30 or 40 or whatever. And, for me, age isn't about the number. It's about, the things you've experienced in life. And to everyone who is under 40, I'm going to tell you the most wonderful thing you'll ever hear. Once you turn 40, you have zero fucks to give about a lot of things. There's a ton of stuff that used to piss me off and ruin my day. Now I'm just like, not worth my time at all. It's a blip on the radar. It's just, you care about the things that are worth caring about. But those little things like, oh, I just spilled my coffee. The bus was late. There's traffic. It's just those things that used to really be enraging just become background noise. And although I will warn you, you will injure yourself sleeping on more than one occasion. I don't know why. I don't understand the human physiology of injuring yourself, but waking up and be like, I can't move my shoulder. What happened? All I was doing was sleeping, and now I can't move my arm. But, being in your 40s and I'm assuming 50s for my friends and stuff, it's liberating. I'm very comfortable with who I am, my personality, my identity, the things I've accomplished in life, because it's been challenging. I started my business at 42, 43. It was something I wanted to do for years. Granted, different types of businesses, because I have a lot of interests and stuff like that. But, I had the opportunity to do that. And, how I incorporated I think more incorporated my business into witchcraft and then witchcraft into business is that, I started out doing, sort of more traditional therapeutic aromatherapy and herbalism. And, my magical path has veered off in various directions over life. And you know what? If you're not practicing every day and any of that things, and people are like, oh, well, you're not a real witch. Yeah. That's all I have to say. If you're a witch, you're a witch. If you don't practice for 10 years, you're still a witch. It's a thing. Don't let anyone tell you who you are or aren't. That's for you to decide. So as I was saying is, I'm very comfortable in my personality. And I come across as confident. And while I'm human and I have my insecurities, I'm not insecure in who I am. And that can be sometimes intimidating for other people. As I've been told, I can be intimidating. I don't mean to be. I'm actually really a sweetheart. I'm really nice. Opinionated. Loud. Very, very talkative. I always feel like the Lisa Simpson when I'm in like a class or workshop or something. I'm like, I'm the one with the answer. It was like that even when I was in college too. It was like, does anyone other than Jennifer have something to say? But I found my voice and I speak with my voice, and just be who you are and do the work. Learn. Don't just, accept one person's opinion on a subject matter, or that, oh, well, I read a book, so clearly I know everything on this subject ever. No, you don't. There's areas that I don't know a lot about. I mean, if I need to use crystals for something, I have to Google it or or look at a book or something because I don't remember. But, I love talking about what I do because I work with, I'm going to just start calling it occult botany. I work with, all types of materials, whether it's plant materials, flowers, herbs, dirt, sand, stones, crystals, whatever. I'm working with these different types of materials, and I just find that very fascinating, and I like to talk about it. It's not just sort of like, oh, come buy my shit. It's that I'm very passionate about that aspect of witchcraft. And I like to talk about it. If you have questions about herbs and essential oils, I'm your gal. Because I had the privilege to spend thousands of dollars educating myself, getting certified, and taking these classes. So I love talking about these things, and I love teaching. So if I'm coming across as a annoying know-it-all, whatever, I apologize. But I'm giving you the benefit of my privilege of having been able to afford thousands of dollars of classes and what I've learned in them. And I've incorporated what I've learned in them in the technology into the things I make. Whether I'm making some a therapeutic aromatherapy or herbal preparation, or whether I'm making something more witchcraft oriented or whatnot, is I have the formal training that I bring into that, and I've talked about that in previous videos on my channel. So I don't want to rehash that more, but I love what I do. I love talking about what I do. I love whether that be different spells, whether that is rituals or some weird connections between all the correspondences of herbs and plants and all these different things. I love talking about that stuff, and I know a lot, and because of what I do, I know a lot of other witchy creators, artisans, and crafters and stuff. So I'm always talking to them about things. So that's just, the things I talk about on a regular basis. But I'm willing to share my experiences with people and my education. And do I need you to sing my praise and come, bow at my feet? No, please don't. But it just, listen to what I have to say. You don't have to like me. Love it or leave it. I'm pretty innocuous for the most part. I really just want to share the knowledge because gatekeeping is bullshit. And I stand by that. Gatekeeping is bullshit. And not everyone has the opportunities to, buy every book ever or take every class or workshop or get certified in this, that, or the other thing. And I know that. And that's why I like, it's a lot of why I'm doing this YouTube channel, not only so you can not just to hear myself talk, although I love hearing myself talk, and you get to see my zany personality, but it's mostly for education. This isn't the Belladonna's Botanicals Buy My Shit channel. Sure, I will talk about my products if it relates to something, I am, a series that I'm doing. Like I'm going to be doing a series of videos on flying ointments. Of course, I'm going to be talking about some of the flying ointments that I make because it goes together. It's not just here, buy my stuff. Because... And, I'm not trying to become some famous YouTuber or whatever. I like sharing the knowledge. I always have. I'm annoying about it sometimes. I always warn people that I'm annoyingly helpful. So occasionally I'll be like, my God, bro. But so just to kind of summarize, and I'll wrap up. We're not boomers. We've been raging against the machine since probably the 80s. Some of us maybe longer. We love millennials and Gen Zers. Sometimes you're a little weird with the Tide Pod eating and strange influencer challenges. I don't understand. Like eating Tide Pods. We had Mr. Yuck stickers on things, so we knew what not to eat growing up. Like, don't drink bleach. That's got a Mr. Yuck sticker on it. But now we have a president that's telling us to drink bleach. That's a story for another day, which I can't even... Anyways, but I digress. But I am who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm confident in who I am. And sure, I have my insecurities and whatnot. I'm not perfect. I am far from it. This is who I am. Like it, love it, or leave it. I'm not for everyone. But all I want to say, again, not boomers. We're not all Karens, although occasionally we do have to invoke a Karen moment every now and then, because we came from a generation where sometimes we had to shout to be heard and to be taken seriously. So that's how we've developed our voices. And, you know, and especially for me, having gone to Catholic school, you know, I had to do that doubly so, because that's a whole other thing right there. Because I've been raging since that machine since I was about 14 or 15, because I was just like, yeah, this is bullshit. I didn't like the way they treated women, and that there was no place for women in church. And apparently 20 some years later, there still really isn't. And that whole problematic thing, there's so much problematic there. I'm not even going there. I also went to an all-women's college, and you know, I went to Moore College of Art and Design in Philadelphia, and us Moore women always joke, it's like, you can always tell a Moore woman, because this is kind of our personality. We're loud. This is us in our glory. We learn to speak our minds and find our voices. And yeah, so I think I was wrapping up, and I wrapped up and diverged, and maybe to wrap up, to re-wrap up, I'm not good at being concise. Thank God for editing software. So all we ask is just give us a little credit, because, you know, Gen Xers have done some cool shit. We've given y'all some awesome stuff and awesome tools to play with, you know, the YouTubes and the Facebooks. Where was Facebook a millennial? I don't know how old Mark Zuckerberg is. He might be a millennial. But, you know, we've been around. We've seen technology change, and we've seen the access to knowledge change. And it's been amazing and enlightening on so many levels. And we're not dinosaurs. We're not stuck in our ways, although I say that wearing my Motley Crue leggings. Or we're stuck in the past, or, you know, want things to go back to the way they were when we were growing up, because I don't want things to be like they were in the 90s or in the 80s or anything like that. Granted, we had better music. And I will stand by that till the day I die. Because the 80s and 90s music was the best music. Because they just don't make music like that anymore. Be who you are. Be true to yourself. Believe in yourself. Don't let anyone tell you you can't, you're not a real witch if. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to stumble, fall, and land flat on your face, because that's how you learn. That's how I learned. I have fallen on my face a million times, gotten up and been like, okay, now I learned not to do that, so let's not do that again. But be who you are. Be true to yourself. Be awesome. And if they don't like you, fuck them. So that's your Gen X witchy advice for today. Much love to you all.